On Titans Talk, a day after a 36-22 Titans loss against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Titans now 7-6 on the season. Our phone lines are open tonight, 737-7767, the number. And we say hello to Eric. Eric, what's going on?
How you doing, Steve? As always, it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Doing great. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, I just going to say I certainly am concerned about the Titans. And I agree, this by no means the division is wrapped up because, like you said before, I don't know if I see us win in Los Angeles against the Chargers. We traditionally had problems out the West Coast where we Justin Herbert's playing because he's one of these top kind of quarterbacks. We've kind of struggled against them. And the game against the Texans don't give them especially since the way they played the Cowboys. That's the only game left on our schedule we might be favored in because I think we're already like 3.5-point underdog to Chargers next week. And the Cowboys, I definitely think we'll be an underdog to them. And that Jacksonville game, which could mean for a playoff spot, there's a possibility. Depending on the points of that game could get flexed to the Sunday night game because they always leave the last week open for game which is most important to the playoffs. And there's a possibility that last game could be Sunday night football for all the marbles. So they kind of like that game, even though it's possibly one or both teams could have losing records. They've done that in the past, so that's what that game could boil down to.
Eric, I promise you there's no TV executive out there praying for Jaguars-Titans on Sunday Night Football at the end. But you're right. If it's for the division, it might happen.
Yeah, because they look at what game is most important because most other divisions either will already be wrapped up or they'll be meaningless games. So, yeah. But two other things I wanted to talk about now I'll get off. I know I let everybody else talk about just specific things of the game, but one thing I wanted to talk about was Todd Downing. I don't know if you heard about this. I was at the game, but I wasn't where I was sitting at because I have season tickets. I sit above the club level section behind the visitors bench on the 50-yard line. But I allegedly heard there were chants behind the Titans bench of people leaving chants of fire Todd Downing. I heard that was going on. A lot of people said that was going on. And here's my thoughts on that. I agree that all bets are off, but my feeling is Amy Armstrong is not going to go to Mike Vrabel and tell him you got to get rid of Todd Downing. I think he's going to leave that up to Vrabel, whether he demotes him. I've heard some people say demote him or fire, and I think that's going to be the end of the season if that happens. But I've also heard another thing. I don't know how true this is, but one of the reasons also is because he still has not been charged by the NFL or suspended or whatever they're going to do with his DUI. Because a lot of people think that decision is still pending about that coming up. So why there may not be no action against him. And one other thing, and then I'll get off. One of the things is you would have to say that with everything the Titans are going through, this is kind of bad timing. Of course, they had the meeting tonight about the stadium approval and everything, the last meeting. And also they're supposed to, Metro Council, I think it's a week from tomorrow night, is supposed to vote on this. But also here's another thing. I don't know if you know this or not. Like I said, I'm a season ticket holder. A few weeks ago, we got the notices in the mail that by this Thursday, you have to decide whether or not you're going to renew your season tickets for the Titans. And the thing is that it's not that you can't do that after that date, but if you don't decide to do it by this Thursday, then there's a strong possibility that you're going to have to pay more money, that you won't be able to pay the same price that you're paying now. They're going to increase prices on you if you don't decide to do it by this Thursday. And I'm in a situation where I enjoy doing it, but I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to do it. I've had 2 hip surgeries in the last few years. I'm maybe on a fixed income. I don't know if I'll be able to go back to work or not, but it's just, to me, on the year-by-year basis. So there's a possibility either this season or maybe next season, maybe my final season of doing this, because I just don't know if I'm going to be able to afford it any longer. And I think a lot of people for the new stadium, it's some that I've talked to said they just don't know if they're going to be able to continue to do it by the time the new stadium gets here. So we'll see what happens. As always, good to talk to you, Steve. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Eric, great call. And first and foremost, best wishes with the hip and the health. And hopefully you can get over to Nissan Stadium or a new stadium for many more years in the future here. It's always tough doing business with stadium stuff and certainly talking about personal seat licenses and tickets, especially moving towards a new stadium, is going to be interesting. And I think a lot of fans are waiting to see exactly how that's going to play out. But your points about Todd Downing are interesting ones. Number one, I don't think anything's going to happen right now because, to your point, the NFL's still investigating. They're going to let that legal process play itself out. But I think it's very likely that Downing will eventually face a suspension for that driving under the influence charge. And if that's the case, that would potentially make it easier whenever it comes down to have team discipline or termination of his job for something like that. But the biggest thing to me right now is Last week, as much as they want to say it wasn't a distraction, and they lost to the Jaguars because they turned the ball over 4 times, not because John Robinson got fired midweek. Let's make that clear. But there's no way that wasn't a distraction last week. Because Amy Adams-Strunk didn't talk about her decision. She finally gave a brief interview to the Associated Press on Friday afternoon. But that meant after she made the call on Tuesday that Mike Vrabel had to stand up there on Wednesday, and players in the locker room had to talk on Wednesday and Thursday about what was going on in the organization. Big picture questions that they had to answer, that they probably don't know anything about, frankly. You can't tell me that's not a distraction to your job. And as I said earlier, how do you stress we can still win a division title? Everybody in this room has a value, and when your number is called, you can step up, and we believe that you're going to get the job done when it's abundantly clear that the owner doesn't believe that the guys in the room are talented enough to get the ultimate job done. That's what we heard last week. And while they all put on the best face and said, we're going to be prepared, we're going to be ready, I don't know if it was the best week of preparation ever at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. So even if you think Todd Downing deserves to be fired, and let's leave the DUI situation on the side, there's a lot of people who believe that he should be gone as the offensive coordinator. I don't think you can make the move now. I don't think you can rock the boat again. That group over there has to circle the wagons and get ready to go try and win a football game this weekend, and then another one the next weekend. And I don't think any more upheaval is going to help that. So I think Todd Downing's the guy until this season ends. After that, all bets are off. But I will say something about yesterday's game, and I heard those chants as well from the stands. I thought Todd Downing had a good game plan. I thought the way he started the game, the opening script was brilliant on the first drive. I think what they did in the first half was good. They got Henry going. He looked like vintage Derrick Henry against the Jaguars in the first half of that game. And then the turnovers started to come. And it got them out of whack of what they were trying to do, and the offense really bogged down. That being said, just when I want to stand up and say, maybe it's not all Todd Downing. Maybe it's more about guys doing the right thing, executing, not shooting themselves in the foot. Maybe it's more about that. You get a play like we saw on the 4th and final turnover, where it is like a gimmick swinging gate that they're trying to get Derrick Henry the ball. And Ben Jones, who, God love him, he's had an incredible season of holding together an offensive line while battling injuries in his own right. Ben had a rough day snapping in the shotgun yesterday. And you're trying to run this play where it's a direct snap where Derrick Henry's supposed to be on the move and grab the snap from in front of Ryan Tannehill. And oh, by the way, Derrick Henry doesn't have the greatest hands in the world. I don't know if you've noticed. And then it's a low snap. I have no idea what that play was. I have absolutely no idea what the play was. The only thing that was well done on the play is Ryan Tannehill sold the heck out of the errant snap. The only problem was the snap actually was errant. It was just a disaster. But the thing is, even if it was executed perfectly, unless it so totally caught the Jaguars by surprise, and Henry goes for 70 yards or whatever it was, and scores, I don't think you can justify that play call. Down 33-14 with 16 minutes left in the game. I just don't think you can do it. Actually, it was in the 4th quarter, so I don't even think it was that much time left. I just don't think you can justify it. And so even when I'm starting to think, okay, maybe this was a day where Todd Downing actually did do good things. And maybe more of the concern is about the roster he's dealt with, is about the execution of the players. You get a call like that, and you just have to look at yourself and say, okay, maybe some of it is Downing. Jonathan Hutton said last night during our highlight portion on the local power companies of Middle Tennessee Sunday Sports Central, he called it a downing. And it made me laugh then and kind of makes me chuckle now, because it was the type of play that you wonder about a guy who's on the hot seat as the offensive coordinator already and has taken some hit. You just have to wonder about a play call like that. And that's the type of things that can really ruin your relationship with the staff, with your fan base, maybe the owner as well. So Todd Downing is going to be a very interesting person, and that offensive coordinator position very interesting to watch as we move forward. Phone line still open, 737-7767. Josh, we got somebody here? Okay, let's go take that call. Let's go to Gordon. Gordon, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Steve. I have a very simple question. Who can this team beat? We only need to win 2 out of the next 4 games, but I don't know who we can beat anymore. Even, the Texans, when they've been lousy, they've played spoiler more than once. So we can't take them for granted. We can't take Jacksonville for granted, that's for sure. And, I think other teams are starting to smell blood in the water here. I don't know. I think some of it is the roster. We got an offensive line that's porous. They did a good job in the first quarter, but they can't seem to sustain it. That's why Derrick Henry had 96 yards rushing in the first quarter and only 25 in the next 3 quarters. They allowed Tannehill to get sacked, 4 times, one of which resulted in a fumble. And this team has been very good against the run, but other teams are figuring it out. Yeah, but they're not that good against the pass, so let's just throw the ball. I don't know who we can. I mean, I want to be optimistic. I want us to at least win the division and go to the playoffs. But frankly, I don't know who we can say, hey, this one's in the bag, that one's in the bag, we got this. And this is just very disappointing. And yeah, next man up. Problem is that when you have to have depth, the next man up has to be almost as good as the guy he's replacing. And I don't see that, especially on the left side of that offensive line. It's like Taylor Lewan or nothing. Yep. So I'm, on the panic meter, I'd say I'm up at 60% right now.
I understand, Gordon, and good stuff with the call. Here's the deal. Nobody in the league has guys who are second on the depth chart that are almost as good as number 1, or at least you shouldn't, because there's only so many starters in the NFL. And if that starter's any good, you would hope the guy who's behind him is probably a step or 2 down the run. The problem is, it's not clear the Titans have guys who are even a step or 2 down the rung in the depth order. But the other thing is they've gotten a bunch of injuries. You mentioned Taylor Lewan. Taylor Lewan's supposed to be one of the best left tackles in the league. He's certainly paid like that. Unfortunately, he got hurt on the first play of the second game of the season. And that completely changed what this offensive line was going to look like. They made the decision to keep him around at his salary and part ways with Roger Saffold. So you had to make a change there at left guard, and then you lose the left tackle. And so that left side of the line is a shell of what it looked like last year. It just is. The draft picks have not panned out, obviously, up front on the offensive line. And you look defensively, yeah, the Titans have struggled against the pass in the last few weeks. They've had 3 consecutive games of giving up a 300-yard passer. But what's happened in those 3 games? Danico Autry is out of the line. No Danico Autry up front on a defense that already had Harold Landry out, has Bud Dupree hobbling a bit, has Jeffrey Simmons really hurting, but fighting his way through to give that presence out there on the field. But there's not really a weapon to get around. If you double team Jeff and try to slow him down, usually Danico and Bud would kind of converge and help you out. And if you add Harold, oh gosh, look out, we're back to the end of last season with that pass rush. But you're nowhere near that right now with 2 of those guys out of the equation and another guy not at 100%. Now you've lost your two starting inside linebackers as well. Your best blitzing linebacker in David Long. And then you had Christian Fulton out on the back end for the last week and a half, basically. It has been a struggle defensively because of the injuries. And the Titans have to overcome that. Who can they beat? Nobody, playing the way they played yesterday. But who can they beat? 7 teams based on the way, or at least 6 teams, Colts twice, based on the way they've played up until this point. And I still think yesterday, if you could eliminate those turnovers, and that's a big if, obviously, when you turn the ball over 4 times. But the way they came out with the plan and running Henry, that's a plan that can beat the Jaguars if you play clean football. In the trenches, I think the Titans, even beat up, are still better than Jacksonville. But you can't turn the ball over 4 times. You just can't against anybody. And that's what they did yesterday. Derrick Henry, 96 yards in the first quarter. The reason he only had 25 after that is they only snapped the ball like 9 times in the second and third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, they're down by 1 million, and they have to pass it. If they could have played clean football, Derrick Henry runs 30-plus times yesterday and probably goes for 200 yards, and that's the type of game that the Titans can win against Jacksonville and could win again in January. But they got to play better football than they've done recently. They got to hold on to the ball, and they got to create turnovers that they haven't been able to do. Back to the phones we go. Let's say hello to Thomas. Thomas, what's going on tonight? Welcome to Titans Talk.
Hey, good evening, people. Hey, let's have a little fun here.
Okay.
Kind of lighten the load. I have a Titans trivia question.
All right.
You ready?
Yep, let's go.
Here she goes. Who was fined $250,000 by the NFL for flipping the old bird? Not just one, but 2. This happened in November 15th, 2019. Good luck, people.
Wait, are we sure it was 2019 and not 2009? All right, we had an issue there with our phones with Thomas. I'm assuming he's referring to the Bud Adams incident up in Buffalo more than a decade ago. Obviously, Bud Adams passed away in 2013, I believe, so certainly wasn't around in 2019. If anybody else can jog my memory, if Thomas wants to call back in, if something happened in 2019 that I missed, but I don't think there were any double birds by anybody associated with the Titans in the last few years. We'll go back to the phones here and say hello to James. James, good evening. You have any trivia questions for me?
Oh, yes. I got a question and a little advice.
Yeah, go ahead with that.
Okay, first of all, the team got to stick together and play together as a whole and stop trying to celebrate every little play they make. Try to outsmart the next man that's in front of you. Block and let the other guy get on out there and run the ball. Stop depending on one person. Let's stick together and go. Tighten, you got to tighten up.
All right, James, thanks so much for that call. That's the bottom line right now. They have to stick together in that locker room, and in a time when it's clear not even ownership completely believes in this team and what they're capable of doing. So they've got to pull it all together, and they got to go find a way to win a football game. This weekend or next week, they got to find a way to win a football game. This team should have a winning season. That's how it was set up. That's how they need to finish the job. They should have a winning season. They should win the division. They should be hosting a first-round playoff game and be back there for a 4th consecutive season in the playoffs, which is no small feat, by the way. And there may be a big turnover in the roster coming up. But this team still has the opportunity to accomplish some things, even if they don't win the Super Bowl. And that is the ultimate goal. It should not be lost and clearly isn't by ownership. But this team has the ability to do the things I just laid out. To win 9 games, have a 7th straight winning season, get to the playoffs for a 4th straight year, win a division title for a 3rd straight year. That's heady stuff. There aren't a lot of teams in the league that can approach anything like that. And it shouldn't be sneezed at either. And that's what this team has to be charged with right now, is pulling it all together and coming out and just trying to win the next football game in front of them. Take a break. Back with more after this here on Titans Talk on News Channel 5+.